Our guest speaker today is Reverend Patricia Zogar. Patricia's ministry began in 2001, serving in Victoria, Winnipeg, and Kamloops. And she began her work at Unity of Nanaimo on April Fool's Day 2016. Highlights of her career have been the bringing together of 3 separate churches, Unity Comox, Unity Victoria, and Unity Nanaimo, which are all now one super Vancouver Island church. Other highlights of her career have been a 2-year term as the president of Unity Canada and the mentoring of someone we have all come to know and love, Reverend Thomas DeShooter. So with that in mind, please let's give a big, warm, prosperous welcome to Reverend Patricia Zogar.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Are you ready? How are y'all this morning? Remember? Happy, rich, and good looking. So, thank you for inviting me back. It's a real privilege and an honor to be with you. It kind of boosts my confidence to know that I'm appreciated and you wanted me back. So thank you for everyone who's here, for your attending, for coming to enrich your life, and for all the wonderful volunteers that you have going here. What a well-oiled team. So it's a great, great privilege and pleasure to be back with you. So, stepping stones to prosperity. I've recently come to the realization or the assumption that my father, who was born in 1915, had Asperger's syndrome. Long before we had Asperger's syndrome. We just called him a nerd, very intelligent nerd, who didn't fit in very well socially. And being a bit of an intelligent nerd and not socially very apt, he didn't really fit into the standard workplace. And so he had a business of his own. He had a radio repair shop. Remember radios? When that was the way we communicated into the world, that was the internet of its day. And every family had probably 3, one in the bedroom, one on the kitchen shelf, and the big cabinet one in the living room, right? That sat on the floor, and we all gathered around it to listen to stories and to the 6 o'clock news on Sunday. Those radios had a lot of component parts, transistors and resistors and condensers and tubes, and they could all go wrong. But the radio was so important in those days, it wasn't disposable. You took it to the shop to get fixed, and that's what my father did. He was a brilliant technician, I understand, and not a very good businessman. He would extend credit and forget to collect it. He would order supplies without checking to see if there was money in the bank. And so 3 times when I was growing up, my father declared bankruptcy. And my mother went back to work when I was 12, but of course she had no skills. She'd been pulled out of school at 14. So she was paid a pittance. So even with both of them working, it was a struggle just to pay the rent and make ends meet. And that went on for a long time until my mother convinced my father, I swear I don't know how she did this, a story unto herself, but she convinced him that California was the land of opportunity. And so they moved to California. And eventually my father did get a job where he could fit in and work with other people. He was employed by Bell Industries, which made condensers and transistors and resistors. And what his job was to compare their parts to the corresponding parts that were made by Amanda and Electrohome and all that stuff, and compile an annual calendar that cross-referenced all their serial numbers as to which part could be used to replace which other part from another company. Really perfectionist work. And I think my father was probably the only person who could do it. He did it for 26 years without a single error ever being discovered. So he was financially for that. So that by the time my parents retired, They were living prosperously. I remember at one point, for the two of them, they had 3 bathrooms, 4 TV sets, and 5 vacuum cleaners. There was no scarcity in the house. Their lives were totally, totally different from what they had been when we were growing up. Now, I think that prosperity came about because they were willing to open their minds and change their ideas about what was possible and to take a risk and act on it. So they moved from Toronto to California, and they started over from scratch. So changing your thinking, being open to something totally different from what you thought before, and taking steps, and I call that taking that risk is stepping out in faith. Those could be 2 good stepping stones towards prosperity. Because it's all about transformative thinking that is so very different from what you were brought up with, what you were told was true all your life, that your life is totally different from what it used to be. So I want to share a couple of things with you. I recently have been watching Lisa Ling has a series of documentaries. I think it's called Life in America. And they cover all sorts of things. One was a men's seminar. The facilitator had been a Tony Robbins person, but he'd broken away and formed his own little niche. And he was running seminars for men, probably kind of like my father. Men who didn't really fit in socially. They didn't have the confidence to deal with women. They were desperate for a relationship, for love, and for sex, probably. But they didn't know how to interact with women. So he ran this seminar, said he was going to teach him to be pickup artists. And he did some really rather risque advertising, big flashy things on the internet about mountains of breasts are going to be coming your way. So he got these guys in, and as he explained later, you have to talk to people in the language of where they are, you know? So he got them into this seminar, not in a fancy hotel, no glitzy, shiny things to distract their attention. They were out in the desert, in little cabins, plain food, working 24/7 on their pickup skills. But what he was really doing was having them share deeply with each other their concerns and their history, and that bonding was happening. And then he was doing role-playing, and he was doing meditation exercises, and he was doing outward-bound activities like, rappelling and walking on fire. So at the end of this week, these men had really built their confidence up, kind of starting to transform their thinking. And the facilitator's wife was sort of counseling them a little bit on how they dressed and what shape glasses were and what could make them better. So at the end of the week, he took them into a hotel in Reno where they picked up women at the bar. And it was really all about transforming their experience of themselves. Their impression of themselves, their judgment of themselves, and building their confidence. And that's a variation on all the self-help seminars that we do in personal growth and awareness. For me, back in 1979, it was the EST. Remember the EST series? Yeah. And I mean, what a knock upside the head. I was transformed from an incredibly good victim to being a person who's aware of my responsibility to take charge of my own life. Absolutely, totally transforming. And since that experience, one of the areas in which I'm transformed is my prosperity consciousness. I no longer have the beliefs I grew up with. The money doesn't grow on trees. Money is filthy lucre. Rich people are bad people. All that stuff. Let it all go. And so I now do consider myself to have prosperity consciousness. Another one of the seminars that was on the Lisa Ling documentaries was on the ayahuasca experience. And those of you who probably know Dr. Gabor Mate, who worked on the downtown east side, he was working and experimenting with the ayahuasca experience as a treatment for addiction. But the program I watched, they were treating Army veterans, they were American Army veterans, who had severe disabling PTSD. Now, the psychedelic experiences are transformative because in this case they take a natural plant, but there's a chemical that's psychedelic that totally blows the mind wide open. And people have experiences unlike anything earthly, and just blows it open so the new information can come in. And that's actually what all healing is about, isn't it? And in Unity we do that. We have a transformative teaching here. Not as fast as a weekend or two. You know, most of us have to come for maybe a year or so before we're totally transformed. But what we're doing is training ourselves to be open and conscious and open to new ways of thinking and take a risk. And to me, a risk just means stepping out in faith. In faith, just in trust, knowing. So, can we apply this to finances, money? There's lots of demonstrations of prosperity, but we immediately think of finances, don't we? Well, the reason I thought of this is because at our AGM in July, our treasurer advised us that although we're in a very healthy financial position, she has noticed a trend over the past few months that donations are declining. And I've talked to various other ministers and people in other centers, and they say they've noticed the same things. So we said, why? And there was two reasons we came up with as possible explanations for that. And one is right now in our economic situation, there's a sense of not enoughness, isn't there? Rents are very high, gas prices have gone up, groceries are high. People are saying, I better save up. Those are, of course, are the thoughts not of prosperity, but of lack consciousness. And when we have lack consciousness, thoughts of lack consciousness produce more lack, right? So we need to change how we view things. So do you celebrate the fact that the government sends you GST rebates and carbon tax rebates and a supplement in July if you're old, and dental care for seniors now, and child tax credit? Do you celebrate that as much as you complain about having to pay income tax? Do you celebrate the fact that when you pay your property tax, do you remember that property tax provides hospitals and roads and bridges and things, but do you celebrate the fact that here in BC we get not only a homeowners grant, but a seniors grant? Do we focus on the positive side of paying our property tax? And do we celebrate the fact that in a world where the odds are stacked against billions and billions of people, we are among the people for whom the odds are stacked in our favor? So are we in prosperity consciousness or disparity consciousness? Where are we living our lives? So the second thought we had, that maybe a reason why donations are declining, is the thought that the church doesn't need it. So again, you don't want to give to need. It just gives more power to need. You give because it reminds you of your ability to give, your abundance. So can we switch our thinking from groceries are expensive to, I'm eating very well, thank you. I notice I am, even though groceries are expensive. So there's one word to describe how to get a prosperity consciousness. One. That word is give. Give. You don't have to give it to Unity Vancouver, although you should. But give for value received. For me, that's one of the basic foundations of my value system, is making sure I pay for value received. And, that should be to where you get your spiritual nourishment. Whether it's a person, place, or institution. Give to that return. Pay for value received. So, if you're in a restaurant and the waiter's done a good job, tip generously. I never try and bargain anybody down or get a deal or ask for a discount. I don't need that. I'm prosperous. My mother used to get so angry when she turned 65 and people tried to give her a senior's discount. She said, where the hell were you when I was trying to raise 3 kids? You know? Who's really got the disposable income in this country? Is giving to charity the same as tithing? No, it's not. Because tithing is like 10%. If you're a farmer, you grow your vegetables and your fruits and you harvest them, you take them to market, you sell all you can, and then you take what's left over and take it home and plant it, right? If you're a successful and prosperous farmer, you take 10% off the top of your yield before you go to market, and you put that aside for the future. And what's more, you take the best 10% and set it aside for next year's crop. That's how you ensure your future, right? So charity's great, helping other people out, but tithing or giving is about your own future, your own spiritual consciousness, your own financial future. It's bringing others along. So what's the priority? Is giving something out of what's left over, or being absolutely committed to giving, to ensuring that our future commitment? That's why there are pledge drives, right? Commitment. If you're Catholic, if you grew up Catholic, you went to church, and the first of the year you got 52 envelopes, right? And every week you took an envelope back with money in it. And if you didn't go for a week, next week you took 2 envelopes. And if you were away for 6 months, when you came back, you put 27 envelopes in. And that ensured that your spiritual home, your spiritual community continued. Even if you took a break for a year and came back, you knew your church was going to be there. And that's because the members were committed to giving. So the question is, where do we rank giving? How important is it to us? Well, to me, I rank it above paying my rent, because my spiritual community is more important to me than my physical home. So I don't feel complete if I haven't given. It becomes a way of life. You don't have to give to your spiritual home, but you should. Here's why. Because this is a life-transforming teaching, is it not? Who's had their life transformed? And yet, a lot of people don't give it as much value as a cup of coffee. What's the priorities? And some say, well, I give my time. And absolutely, yes, we couldn't do this without volunteers. But if you give time, what you're going to get back is, as it is given, so shall it be returned to you. You're going to get time back. Time is a good thing. Anybody ever meet a hoarder? Really meet personally a hoarder? When I was in Winnipeg, I let one of our congregants live in my basement. I knew he was a hoarder and he'd been kicked out of his place, but I didn't think he was going to bring it all with him. And I found I couldn't get to the laundry room for the stacks of old newspapers. And he took over my shed, and there was a box this big up on the top shelf, socks. A box that big of the socks he wasn't wearing. Hoarding. And we hoard money too. And the thing about money is, it's never enough. You ever notice that? No matter how much you've got, you want more. Elon Musk thinks he hasn't got enough money, Do you feel obligated to deprive yourself for a rainy day or save up for your children's inheritance? I love that sticker on the bumper stickers. We're spending our children's inheritance. The thing is, 2 or 3 generations ago, when the average life expectancy was 50-something or 60, parents had to save up money for their young kids to get started with. Now, they keep us alive so damn long. My kids are not only well established, they're retired. Use that money for good right now. There's a chapter in the prophet that spend your money in the season, your own season, so that you enjoy the blessing of being able to give. What are our ideas and our fantasies around money? As I say, I was brought up believing that we were kind of being poor made us better, because rich people were not nice. They all were thieves and stole from poor people and stuff. I've learned to let that go. Our pianist Nico posted this in Facebook. Hedonia. A hedonist is a person who they're all about personal pleasure. Their whole life, that's all they're about. It's a hedonist, right? So there's something called depressive hedonia. And that's a state of depression pervasive in Western society, where those who are suffering its symptoms turn not to suffering and restraint from pleasure, as is normal with traditional depression, but are drawn to the pursuit of pleasure, not meaningful pleasure, but further consumption, which of course supports the very system that brought the state of being into existence. It was a mind bender to me. It's I'm depressed because I've got so much stuff that there's really nothing more for me to work for. So I go out and buy more stuff. You know people like that? You see it on TV all the time, don't you? Prosperity is around you. All around. It's all around us. So is lack. You know, I always say, good and evil are always available to us. They're just like this. It isn't that it's good over here and evil over there. It's not that it's prosperous over here and lacking over there. It's all like this. Which do you choose to focus on? It's all there, all available. A few years ago, I lived in Souk when it was still a village, and we had a lovely little art scene, a great community theater, and we had a volunteer philharmonic orchestra. And the orchestra, like all orchestras, had a pledge drive, needed some patrons, so you could become a patron at 4 levels, I think it was, and the top level was life member, and I think $1,000. So I decided to do that. Not that I had a lot of money, but the arts are very important to me. As a side effect that I didn't anticipate, I found myself being invited to receptions for the top donors in the biggest house in town with the wealthiest men in town. Now, I'm just saying, you know. But there's side effects to giving, to being generous. It attracts generosity back to you. Charles Fillmore says the key to true prosperity is right identification. That is knowing who you are. He says, you're not a worm in the dust. You're not a born sinner. You are a child of God, an expression of God, a divine idea in the mind of God. Sure, you're having a human experience right now, but the core of you is divine. It's spirit. It's abundance. So you have to know your own inherent worth, and so many of us don't, right? We devalue ourselves. I'm not worth having a lot of money is a subconscious thing that goes by. A few months ago, a woman in Toronto purchased a lottery ticket for the first time. She bought a quick pick and won $70 million. If you won $70 million, you would do what needs to be done to get ready to go pick it up, right? You get on the train and go to Toronto. You go to Hong Kong. You go to the moon for it. You do whatever you need to do in order to get ready to have that. So are things, you have a divine inheritance. And you have to do the things. You have to get yourself ready to claim it. Claim it, because you are divine, right? Steps to take to claim your divine inheritance. Steps like transforming your thinking, blowing your mind open wide to things you've never considered before. And steps by like taking a risk, stepping out in faith. You've got to take the steps to claim your inheritance. You have to identify yourself as worthy, forgiven, and pure in heart. Anybody have a problem with that? You might have to work at knowing yourself as worthy, forgiven, and pure in heart, except those of us who really enjoy our victimhood, you know. Right now, every one of us is doing everything exactly the right way to continue to the life that we are living right now. Exactly right. So if I want my life to be different, I need to do something in a different way, right? I'm sure you've already heard of Edwene Gaines. She's sort of the unity, prosperity diva, as it were. She says there are 4 simple steps to prosperity. First, of course, is tithing. Acknowledging that we know that God is our source. We must return 10% of our income back to our source of inspiration, the person, place, or institution where you have received your spiritual food. Now, spiritual food is not that which is yummy and delicious. It's like our soulmate is not the person who makes us feel all warm and fuzzy. Did you know that? Our soulmate is the person who gets in our face and makes us become all we can be. So spiritual food is that which wakes us up and shakes us up and gets us back on our spiritual path. Second requirement, we're required to forgive everybody all the time, especially ourselves. Forgive everybody who doesn't think like you. I'm having a hard time right now because I'm addicted to watching what's going on in the States. She suggests you ask at bedtime, did I put anybody outside my heart today? And third, we are required to set clear-cut, tangible goals. Exactly what do you want? And are you willing to direct your faith and your actions toward receiving that? Our job is to create what we do want, not what we don't want. So when we criticize or judge or argue or don't like things, we are creating more of what we don't want. Nothing is too good to be true. Nothing. For you. You want something? Write it down and believe that it's on its way to you because you are doing everything you need to do to claim your divine inheritance. Tithing, forgiving, setting goals. And our fourth requirement is seek and find and get on your divine purpose. Why are you here? What is your magnum opus? Because studies have shown that the happiest people in the world are those who give and serve. Don't those bring you joy, giving and serving? Because the law is, as you give, so you receive. And then she says, this is a direct quote from Edwin Gaines. I would never have the guts to say this myself, but I'm quoting her. If you are not receiving all that you need to receive, or all that you want to receive, the truth about you, and I love you enough to tell you, is that you are a tightwad. And so I'm asking you to take this moment and get outside your comfort zone and give yourself permission to play with the big kids. Take a risk. Take a risk. You have a divine inheritance. Ask for it. Expect it. You know, Eric Butterworth said something that blew my mind a few years ago. We do affirmations and prayers and everything, saying what we want. We get what we want. He says, you don't get what you want. You get what you expect. What do you expect? Get ready to claim it. And finally, in the words of Mario Andretti, if everything seems under control, you're not going nearly fast enough. May you be blessed with abundance and joy all the days of your life. Namaste.
Nice. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life for me. Yes, I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. The river running free, oh, you know how I feel. The blossoms on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Hey, I'm feeling good. Hey, dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean. Don't you know, butterflies are having fun. You know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done. That's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. When you shine, you know how I feel. The scent of the pines, yes it is, you know how I feel. Hey, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Oh, the scent of the pine, yeah, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom, freedom, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. I got a new life. I got a new life, yeah, yeah, 'cause I'm feeling good. Hey, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Woo. I'm feeling good. I have no idea what's going on.
I think they like that, Tom.
I tried to follow your advice when I was singing that, so
All right, one more time, Tom Arnson. So now, as we bring our gathering to a close, please stand and let us together say our prayer for protection. All together now, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Please remain standing for the peace song.
Step I take, let this be my joy.